Welcome to Perspectives with Asma Silva. Today we have Tahirah Amatul-Wadud with us, who is running for Congress from Springfield area. And as you know, we've covered a lot of different topics on this show when it came to either politics or people running for politics, informational, educational programs. But today we are going to go back into the political field, and I thank you for joining us, Tahirah, and I'd like to invite you to our show. And wanted to just start the conversation about who you are. So if people want to know who is Tahirah, what would you say?
Oh, thank you for having me, first off. And I love that question. So I am a Springfield resident. I've been living in Springfield since I was 9 years old. I was born in Queens. I lived in Brooklyn when I was a little girl, and my family moved here because they wanted a good opportunity for us to live in a house. My dad ended up getting a really good job. And I've attended the local colleges, went to Elms College in Chicopee, and then Western New England University for law school, and have always been an advocate within the community, even as young as 17 when we had an issue in our neighborhood where two little boys were badly beaten and in an abandoned building on our street. And at 17, I became an advocate by demanding that City Hall demolish the building. And that was my first sort of bite at that justice, the apple of justice. Mm-hmm. So I'm a lawyer. I have a full family law practice and a civil rights practice. And I'm really excited to be running for the 1st Congressional District seat, which is all of Springfield, all of Hampden County, all of Franklin County, parts of Hampshire County, parts of Berkshire County, in Hampshire County, and parts of Worcester County.
Okay, and so you said you moved here when you were 9
mm-hmm.
in Massachusetts.
Yes.
And you became a lawyer.
Yes.
And so how has your experience that you believe has prepped you for this particular position?
Yeah, because of the work that I've done, because of my education and some of the community work that I've done, including serving low-income families at one of my earlier jobs at Western Mass Legal Services, which is now Community Legal Aid. I've had an opportunity to be up close and personal with the problems that day-to-day Massachusetts families face, whether that's how to pay bills, how to make plans for survival after they retire. And I got to see how federal and state laws impact families in a real life perspective. And over the past couple of years, though, since about 2015, I became very vocal nationally regarding the civil rights and protecting the civil rights of religious minorities, but not just Muslims, even though Muslims are a large area of my focus because of the anti-Muslim sentiment that we saw rise in 2015 and 2016, but also the attacks on the black churches, particularly in the South, with the massacre that was accomplished by Dylann Roof. Mm-hmm. We've seen the desecration of synagogues, and I really just became very active in the movement towards amplifying what was happening and calling for justice on a national level. In 2015, 2016, I continued to speak around different communities about what was happening around religious minorities. And by 2017, I had an opportunity to have met with thousands and thousands of people over what was happening, their concerns, not just for their rights of the First Amendment rights to practice their religion, but also the rights to feel safe in their own community and their long-term survival and security. And that's when I realized, particularly in our district, right, that people didn't feel like their needs were being met. And I thought, I can do this. I can meet these needs. I understand them. I love the people. I know the rules, I know the issues, and that's when I decided I have the experience to do it, and I'm going to launch this campaign. And you're right, it's a big deal.
So you mentioned you're fighting for religious minorities, and with you wearing hijab, you are a Muslim.
Yes.
And my curiosity is like, what I call it the trifecta, mm-hmm, right? Muslim, African American, and a woman on top of it. I'm sure you're maybe seeing some challenges. Could you tell us about some of the challenges you're facing right now?
Particularly post 2015, and I'd like to use that period because that's when we start to go into the election that resulted in the election of Donald Trump, and we saw the anti-Muslim sentiment, the anti-Jewish sentiment, and frankly, the anti-religious sentiment. When I started talking with people about that, I would always describe myself like this. I would say that I was born into a Christian family, that I'm African American, and have brought with me generations of Americans who've served their country, who came here in less than ideal situations, and that type of a history has given me a great perspective on the American story. Mm-hmm. And I am not a stranger to knowing that people look at me a little differently because of how I dress, or the color of my skin, or because of my gender. But the reality is that those trifecta factors actually make it easier for me to connect. That gives me more commonality with more people, because just in that one story, I'm able to connect with 52% of the population, that is women.
Right.
I can connect with the Christian community. I can connect with the Muslim community. My brother has married into a Jewish family. So I have more commonalities with people than differences. And when I tell people, introduce myself to folks, they appreciate that, and they realize that we really are the same. We have the same values, and we want the same things for our family now and in the future.
And how did you decide? You just recently announced that you were running. So what was the thought process that went behind, and how did you deliberate by yourself and within your family making this decision to run?
Yeah, again, post-election, when I got to see sort of a sense of hopelessness setting in amongst my neighbors, and I don't want to underestimate what that was. Some people feel like, oh, this is stressful or this is hard. Deep hopelessness, where people were saying that it felt like they had weights on their chest, where they didn't see any light to the end of the tunnel. That was the election of President Trump and the policies that he was advancing. And when I realized that people didn't feel like they necessarily had a champion in the federal seat in our very large district, which is 3,000 square miles, I realized that this is more than just about policy. It's also about making sure that people feel heard, feel loved, and feel like they have a champion and an advocate. And I have a wide range of community and wide range of friends and very supportive family. And we sat there and we looked at what was happening in the community. We looked at my skill set. We analyzed the numbers. We've seen where we could make a difference. And we decided that the first congressional seat was the best way to make the most immediate and the most vast impact now, because we don't have time to wait any longer for someone to rescue us. We are going to do it ourselves as a community, and that is the entire district that we represent.
So what are the issues that you're interested in? So when you're campaigning, I'm sure you have talking points and certain issues that you want people to understand that you're going to be working for. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the families want a sense of security. They want to be able to plan for the economic stability of their families now and in the future. And our district, the median income is $49,000, which means that there's a lot of families. We're talking about, that's the median income. That's not even the mean income. We have a lot of families who are struggling to be able to put food on the table, having to decide between how they pay for certain types of costs, whether it's clothes or food or utilities. We have communities that go without having access to high-speed internet, which I take for granted living in an inner city like Springfield. But when you have neighbors, because the United States of America looks at the first congressional district as one neighborhood, when you have neighbors who cannot access the internet, that impacts the whole district, because you're talking about economic development, you're talking about skills gaps, you're talking about wage gaps. We have to care about what's happening with our rural neighbors, and we have to change that. We have to make sure that the internet is accessible and affordable for low-income families, because it's quite expensive. And again, what sets in when kids can't access the internet and have laptops and desktops at home? Skills gaps, wage gaps, and families want to cure that. They want their children to have a future. They want their children to have the best and brightest opportunities. And those are some of my issues, because they're the issues of the community, and we're going to address them very aggressively.
Right. I agree with you in terms of the internet gap, because not only does it's an economic gap, it also affects school.
Yes, it
And their
does.
education.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So who is running against you? What is your competition?
So the seat is currently held by Congressman Richard Neal, who was first elected in 1988. I think I was 13 at the time. He used to be the mayor of Springfield. And I would look at him and we would go to rallies down near City Hall, and I would have like little heart eyes because I just thought the world of him and his presence. And I'm grateful for the work that he's done on behalf of the district and on behalf of serving the people of Springfield as mayor. But I also realized that it's 2018, 29 years, almost 3 decades of service is a lot. And when you serve that long, perhaps you have lots of capital that would reflect in how your community is treated, how your community is served, and how your community thrives, or else you may become a little sort of beholden to other interests. Regardless of what's happening, for right now, looking forward, looking to this future, I am the face of the future of the 1st Congressional District. I understand the people. I connect with the people. I know what the issues are. I know that our families want universal health care options. They want Medicare for all. They want single-payer health care. Families want nothing more than to be secure. And I know that message. I believe in it. I love that community. And that's what I plan to deliver. So while I'm grateful for the congressman and his work, I'm confident that the future is a little bit different, and the future begins now with me. And I'm confident also that our neighbors believe the same.
When you announced, I know you chose a particular place for a very special reason. Would you share that with us?
Yes. So our announcement was December 19th, which was my birthday. And I looked at that as a way to sort of honor my place in this world by committing to continue to serve this world. And we did a 3-stop tour. We went out to Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts, which is one of the areas that is often overlooked. Mm-hmm. And I went and I planted my feet there in a community of supporters, and I first uttered the words right there, live in Shelburne Falls. And what a relief that was to be able to say that and to be so warmly received. And then we traveled up to Pittsfield, and again, standing room only of friends and curiosity seekers who came over to wish me well and to hear about our vision for the future. And that was wonderful and high energy. And then we ended the day by going to Springfield, and I took my kids out of school early and got to Springfield, where we launched again to a room full of people, many of them young people, teenagers, college students. Again, we're talking about very diverse groups, demographically, racially, and you could feel the energy, you could feel the hope. But one of the things that happened that I did not anticipate was the outpouring of love. And it might be funny for me to say that, but people would hold my hand and thank me for running and saying that I've helped to restore hope. And people would have tears in their eyes. And I did not expect that my announcement would have that impact on people. And I would wake up in the middle of the night thinking about how much responsibility I have in this campaign, and how much responsibility I have to win, and how much responsibility I have to deliver once we're in DC, and how utterly humbled and honored I am to even be considered. So this campaign has taken on multi-dimensional levels of importance, not just for me, not just for my family, but for everyone in Massachusetts.
That is probably a great motivator. And who is supporting which organizations, and where have you found maybe the most unexpected support?
Yeah, we've found support all across the district, and we have been able to generate excitement all across the district. Right now, we're working on making sure I get out and meet the people. Again, we're going to be doing listening tours and meet and greets, because I want people to know that I hear them, that I'm excited to get to meet them. And once we do those different meetings, make sure we have recognition about the issues that we are championing, and name recognition so people know that I'm here and that I'm a resource. We're going to end up putting together a really great plan for what happens when we get to DC. So, there's no shortage of things that have surprised me in this early part of the campaign. We have people reaching out, asking us to submit applications for endorsement, which is nice. You know, if organizations and people want to support, that's wonderful. I'm anxious to be able to engage in that and receive that. But first and foremost, my primary endorsements need to come from the people, the working class people of this district. Their endorsement will come in the form of their vote, right. And that vote needs to happen in the September 4th primary, and that's what I'm working for. So
you said you're a mother, you're a lawyer, you work.
Yes.
And now you've decided to run. What is a time commitment that you are committing to all of this?
So I have bags under my eyes, which comes from working all of the time. My mind is on this campaign. It's on the families of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts all of the time. I have 7 children. The youngest one just turned 4. The oldest one is 24. So I am invested in making sure that they have a great future here in the Commonwealth. So how much time am I spending? Lots. And I have great help and volunteers, not only with the campaign, but with the kids and the family. My husband's very supportive. My parents are quite supportive, my brothers and sisters, and they're all making sure that the kids get what they need so that I can serve, and that's what we're doing. And it's beautiful. To see the team in action is just beautiful.
Now, anybody watching this show, or as you said, when you were younger, you had, eyes with hearts seeing this mayor, and whoever may be watching this, a girl or a young minority child, and is looking at you and saying, if she can run and I can run too, then what would you say to them? What would be your message to those kids that are looking up at you?
I would say to those kids just the same thing that I say to my kids, and what my parents said to me: study hard, work hard, serve your community, and you can do whatever it is that you want. For me, this race is about becoming the servant for our community. It's not that it makes me powerful. It gives me influence and the ability to affect change for our people, but I'm asking to work for our community. And if there are people, girls, boys, young people, old people, that feel inspired by what takes courage to enter a political climate in this day and age by this story, then I'm happy. And I ask them to consider reaching out, because whatever I have, whatever I learn, and whatever doors I have open to me are theirs. I'm here as a servant, and my servitude starts now.
So I know you're saying you're going to be hopefully a mentor to many children, but I think you're a mentor to your own children first, by just making this decision to run. Any other topics that you have found that became your issues or that you're going to champion, that you have realized since December that you've announced?
Yeah, one of the issues that I'm finding is very necessary for us to talk about is also how we deal with the opioid crisis. It's ravaging our community. I want to remind people that as we discuss models for addressing it, that we always have to remember that, again, if the federal government looks at our district as one neighborhood, we have to remember that we have Black and brown folks who've suffered from crack addiction and cocaine addiction, and their addiction issues were not treated with compassion and a clinical approach, but more with punitive measures. And that's why we don't have a model for what we're seeing now in the opioid crisis. And I want to make sure that we solve this opioid crisis by having a candid conversation about addiction, that we treat addiction compassionately, medically, across the board for all people, and that we move on from drug policy, which actually serves to hurt minorities and doesn't do anything for our tax base. And people are open to trying to figure this out, because right now we're in quite desperate measure, and it's only because, unfortunately, we've had disparity in certain policies. And once we realize that we are all the same, we have the same issues, we will be undivided. So I'm looking forward to continuing to have those types of honest conversations because people can't wait and they cannot afford for us to sugarcoat around sensitive issues.
Right. Now, what is your hopes in terms of if you get elected? How do you see the next few years being for you and what you would be accomplishing?
Well, I'm confident that once we're elected, what I want to make sure that everybody feels is that they're here with us, that they're in the district and I'm there with them here in Massachusetts, and that when I'm in DC, they're there with me. And that means that we will be advocating to make sure we get Medicare for all, that we have single payer health care, so that people aren't worried about whether or not they'll be able to afford treatment for ill children. I had a child who's now 7 years old, but when she was born, she had a congenital heart defect that required her to have open heart surgery. I brought a nearly dead child to Boston Children's Hospital 7 years ago. I don't want any parent to have to experience that and then worry about whether or not they can afford to have that child cured and whether or not they can afford to have her heal post-surgery. So first and foremost, we have to make sure that we're protecting people's rights and access to health care. And I also want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to secure economic development like we spoke about earlier, but also making sure that our children have access to universal preschool. It shouldn't be a lottery and just the lucky kids get into universal preschool. We want the kids to have a head start as early as they possibly can. And then I want to look at making sure that we can afford affordable college education because kids are becoming drowned in student loan debt.
Right.
I'm looking at myself now. I still have student loan debt and 2 children in college. So what do we have? I'm handing down generational debt instead of a fair plan that makes it possible for people and children to be able to secure educations without becoming so indebted that it impacts their quality of life. So those are some of the things that I want to make sure we do, hitting the ground running in DC.
So moving forward, though, how do you see local politics? You're running for, right now, national politics. Why did you decide to run for national and not maybe your local politics?
Yeah, we have great local leaders in Western Massachusetts, and I'm proud of the diversity in our state legislature here, at least those that are in my district. And the municipal elections, we just elected more women to the city council and the school committee of Springfield, particularly, than ever before. And that's wonderful. We need to let women lead. And I'm quite content that our municipal, particularly what would be in my district, municipalities are covered competently. There's always room for improvement, but I'm looking forward to working with them as colleagues. Again, when I look at the way I can have the greatest impact and the most immediate impact, it is definitely in the federal seat. That's what I want, that's what the people want, and that's what they deserve. They deserve to have a fearless and fierce advocate that they can believe in and who they know will not come home without having served them in Washington, D.C.
So if people want to know more about the issues you're standing for and championing, where can they find out more information about you, yourself, and your issues?
My team is on top of it with all of the ways that people can reach us. We have a website, and it's my first name, Tahirah, the word for, F-O-R, Congress, spelled out, CONGRESS.com. And our social media handles all across social media platforms is my first name, Tahirah, for Congress. And if you put in variations of that, it'll come up. So Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, and Instagram. So there's no shortage of ways to reach out, and we welcome people's questions, we welcome their thoughts and their interest.
So I started off this show by asking you, who is Tahirah? So we have a few minutes and wanted to give you this opportunity to talk about anything we may not have covered and explain who is Tahirah.
All right. Well, thank you. So in addition to my resume that I sort of gave, you'll also find in me a mom who loves children, loves the children's community, their network of their classmates, their fellow team members. We're involved in youth sports and community building. We serve the community by cooking for people who don't have access to food. We do volunteer work throughout the community. And I absolutely take a lot of pleasure in making sure that the children see through me and my husband community service modeled, because that's what I saw in my parents. And again, it's just a perfect fit and evolution in my life here in Western Massachusetts is for us to be running for this seat.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for coming out today and talking to us. I really wanted to have you today because when I heard you were running, I thought, wow, in Massachusetts, someone, like you said, fresh face, different, bringing a new perspective to our area and our state. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And we will be following you.
Thank you.
And to wrap up the show today, a couple of things I just wanted to mention was not only are we finding a lot of new people with fresh faces, new ideas, new perspectives, running in Congress or any local and national politics. I encourage everyone, those who are viewing, please reach out to your neighbors, to your friends, and let everybody know that, find out about these new faces, learn about them, and go to Tahirah's website, Tahirah for Congress, and research about them and give everybody a new chance. We really need to see our country going in a different direction, and I feel like that is exactly what she's doing, listening to her constituents and saying, giving them hope, and that hope is in her and the issues that she stands for. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you join us again.